Alrighty, so for oil pastel, we are going to be doing 3 different exercises. This very first exercise is going to be beginning us on the route to learning how to blend colors and to lay flat colors. So we are playing around with our tints, our tones, and our shades, which is our whites, our grays, and our blacks. So everybody has received one of these packs of oil pastels. And when you open it up, it looks all nice and pretty, super fancy. So for this specific exercise, it does not matter what color you use for each 3 of these. For my demo purpose, I am going to use the same color for each one so that you can see those variations. I'm going to use the orange color, okay? So you're going to need 1 to 3 colors because you can change between the 3. I am just using 1. And then you're going to need your black, your white, and your gray for the tints, tones, and shades. So I'm going to put the rest of my oil pastels off to the side. You also will need a paper towel and possibly a pen specifically for its cap. And I'll explain that here in a minute. So beginning with oil pastels, you are going to be using the side of your oil pastel. A lot of people like to kind of do the very top, and I like to use the side because I have more control of those edges. It's kind of like crayons, but definitely nicer and softer. So I created these ovals off of that template that I showed you, and it's just, there's no rhyme or reason for the ovals, but just to make it easier. I also did use Sharpie because it creates a nice border, creates a boundary for the oil pastel. Because you might notice that oil pastel can get a little bit messy on the edges. It's hard to have clean edges. So coming in here, I'm going to work my way in one direction, and then I'm going to work my way in another direction. So I'm going vertical, horizontal, and then I'm going diagonally. I'm changing up the edge of my oil pastel so I can get it really nice and clean. The key with this assignment is craftsmanship and consistency. So you might be noticing that I'm doing my very best to stay within those lines, within those lovely boundaries. Okay, so now that I have that done, I'm going to set this off to the side. Sorry that I twist this as I work. It helps to turn your sheet. Okay. Now for these middle ones, I'm going to be laying down the white, the gray, and the black. So obviously with white on white paper, it is hard to see, but you should be able to see to some extent. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want to fill it all in nice and neat. Okay. So now that I have that taken care of, I'm going to go over into a tint. So a tint is a color or a hue mixed with white. So I'm going to lay down a very, very light layer of my orange. So the key with mixing colors that we will find out is that layering is going to be really, really important. So I'm going to put a light layer of orange down. You can see the paper is still showing through. And then I'm going to come in here with a little bit of white, and I'm going to lay that down and kind of blend it through. So with white, because white is a weaker color and it's easily affected by other colors, I won't need as much orange. So that light layer of orange will suffice, and then I will blend it using this white. You will notice white is the best blender and the easiest blender in my opinion, where some of these other colors will be a little trickier to get an even consistency of. So what I'm looking for is nice and even tones throughout that shape, so you can see how everything is pretty even. You might notice I have little bits of ickiness around the edges. That is where this pen cap comes in. I'm going to actually scrape away any of the extra color that is sitting on the black Sharpie. And that is also why I have my paper towel to wipe off the edge of my pen cap, because it will kind of get a little gunky. So this makes your piece look really, really nice and clean It's just an easy way to do this. So then I wipe it off. Going to do the same thing with that last one. So you'll do this one for each and every shape that you are going to be working on. So now when we go into the gray, okay, the grays are going to be a little trickier. So I'm going to practice with the orange through each one, and I will finish that up here in a second. I won't have you waste your time watching me fill that in. And then I'm going to jump into the gray. So the gray, you'll notice the gray is a little bit more transparent. It doesn't go on as thick or as clean as the orange or as the white, which is totally fine. There's different oil pastels that have different opacities to them. So right off the top of my head, the lime green, so the lighter green in your pack, is a little bit lighter and thinner. It doesn't go on as thick. Same with the purple and same with the pink. So you will notice this as you work. One way to create more of an even, consistent layering of this is letting it kind of sit and dry between days. Okay, so now I'm going to go into the tone of mixing. So I'm going to lay down a light and even layer of orange throughout the shape. You want to make sure you go throughout the entire shape and not just like a line through the middle, because you want it to blend. So with white, I laid down orange and then I mixed and blended with white. With gray, I go back and forth. So I put down orange. Now I'm going to put down gray. And I'm going to get a nice good layer on there. And then I'm going to come back in with a little bit more orange. And when I say a little, just a little, I'm just kind of smearing it on in there. Remember, you don't need to press hard. Honestly, when you press hard, you'll notice it creates kind of a dent in the oil pastel. And now I'm coming back in with this gray. So now that I have a few layers, so I go orange, gray, and I'm going to use the little edges, being smart about my craftsmanship, to lay this on. And you'll notice this is not as even as the white, and that's totally fine. Okay, and then you're going to come in here for the black. So black is one of the strongest colors. I very rarely have you guys use black.
Mainly because it is a very strong color that will take over all of the other colors. So black is just very opaque and very strong. So we're going to fill in this rectangle, and then I will give you a couple of tips for how to create a shade with black. So you'll see that it definitely is more opaque. It is one of those colors that if you get it anywhere else, it will totally get everywhere. It will take over any other color. So remember, our goal is to cover all of the little white bits of the paper, all of those lovely little white schniblets. Using the edge, going in different directions will help with this. And remember, craftsmanship is key. So I usually work around the edges and then pull the color inward. I also will rotate my paper often because it helps make sure that I don't go outside of the edges. And if you do, it's not the end of the world. So now I'm going to come in and clean up those edges with my pen cap. It's my fancy tool. Just scraping off the extra and wiping it off on my paper towel. So now for the shade, I'm going to start with a very light layer of black. So with the white, I started with orange and then white. And now with the shade, I'm going to start with a very light layer of black, and that is all I'm going to add. That's all the black that's going to be added in. So I'm going to cover the entire shape. I don't want to just create like a line down the middle. I want to evenly spread it so that it looks nice and even if it doesn't cover all of the white bits. Then I'm going to come in with my orange oil pastel, and I will start to blend with the orange just kind of how I did with the white on the tint. So now you might see little clumps on the end of your oil pastel. That is where your paper towel is going to come in handy, and you just kind of twist it off on there to get rid of any of the gray or the white that is on the end of the oil pastel. So now coming in, I'm going to be blending that black with the orange, and you'll notice that that black is so strong that if I were to add any more, it would look exactly like the black oval that you see here as well. So obviously I'm making a shade of this hue, or also known as a color. So I'm making a shade of orange. And I'm going to use the different edges, and if I get any clumps on the end, I just smush them back in and blend them out. Remember, work from the outsides in, that way your edges stay nice and clean. And also I want to see a nice even shape for your piece. And then at the end, you're going to clean it up with your pen cap. And if you don't have a pen cap, you can use a paper clip, you can use a butter knife, you can use anything that has a little end to it. It's a fancy tool, but it does what it needs to do. So to reiterate this, for a tint, you're going to put orange and then blend with the white. And then for the tone, you're going to go back and forth, orange, then gray, then orange, then gray. And then for the shade, you're going to lay down a light layer of black, and then you're going to blend with that orange.